Vex Mythoclast, the weapon that we all don't have, except for Zem. We were cautious with tuning this one at launch, knowing that shipping a dominant weapon that has incredibly low ownership would break PvP, and aim for balanced, but erring on the side of not letting it ship too strong. However, it felt short of balanced. Ownership is much higher now, and we want it to be strong enough to be a desirable weapon from Vault of Glass. So, damn, the PvE damage bonus is now increased by about 40%. The range stat has been increased to near best in class for high impact auto rifles. Wow. They increased the stability stat, and the bitch already has mad stability even with the catalyst. They reworked the They reworked the catalyst to grant They reworked the catalyst to grant stability and damage after a kill. So basically, like it did in D1, you would get a kill, it would grant, what was it, like crowd control or something like that. So every time you get a kill, it increases the damage. It's kind of like what it did in D1. They increased the rate of fire from 360 to 390, reduced linear fusion rifle mode charge time from 820 to 533, same as standard linear fusion rifles. No longer loses overcharge stacks on stow except when in linear. Yo, Vex Mythoclast just got a sexy ass buff. Vex just got a sexy ass buff and I want it. We need to do Vault of Glass today. I want Vex. I want Vex. This is the highlight of the whole TWAB right now. I mean, obviously I love everything else with the machine gun stuff, but this Vex is the highlight. The whole thing. There goes Anarchy. All right, the Anarchy exotic grenade launcher has been dominant for years now. Yep. We're ignoring the season with the sweet grenade launcher artifact mods, of course, which is this season. Breach and Clear. It's incredible. The Anarchy exotic grenade launcher has been dominant for years now, being near mandatory for certain raid bosses, combined with, example, double slug shotguns, as well as excelling as a solo weapon and for ad clears in some encounters. We like that it's a great choice for hard solo content and trapping enemy spawns, choke points, but don't want it to remain part of a dominant tactic for boss damage. Okay, I understand that. And particularly don't want it to be great for boss damage and ad clears in a single encounter, basically just dominating everything, which it does. With this change, we expect it to remain strong without being borderline usable as a primary weapon. So they reduced the total reserve mag from 26 to 16, okay? And they reduced damage by 30% versus bosses. Champions are not bosses, which we know, they're majors. As a person who uses Anarchy, that's not bad. That's a good compromise because you're still gonna be able to use this weapon. You go into GMs and shit, killing champions, killing ads. You'll obviously still be able to use it to damage bosses, because remember, Anarchy is allowing you in combination with your legendary weapons to deal a ton of damage, but reducing the damage by 30% against bosses is definitely gonna stop people from using it and use it more so like what it's meant to be, which is a trap. You know what I'm saying? And the whole idea of the double slug shotgun swapping, that shit is completely dead now, because that combo was carried by the double slug shotguns along with Anarchy. That's not gonna be a thing no more. So now you're gonna get to see people doing other things, using other weapons that have been in the game, and now everyone's gonna be like, holy shit, yo, Deathbringer was this good, rocket launchers were this good, and then machine guns are getting buffed. You're gonna see how those are gonna work out. Linear fusions got buffed 2 seasons ago. People are gonna start using those. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Like, now you want to do DPS, you pull out your DPS weapons and you do DPS. I'm not mad at the change. I thought it was gonna be worse, if I'm being honest. So Xenophage. Xenophage was already top notch, so it didn't need to benefit from the global machine gun buff. It does benefit from the damage per bullet buff to machine guns, but now has a slower rate of fire to compensate, resulting in slightly lower damage per second, but higher burst damage and sustained damage, since it's now more ammo efficient. Okay, so they reduce the rate of fire from 120 to 90, and it receives less of the machine gun PvE damage buff. So basically what they're saying is, to translate, machine guns got a buff. Xenophage was already at the top, not getting nerfed, where everybody says they nerfed Xenophage. Now it has a slower rate of fire to compensate for the increased damage per bullet, so it's essentially still going to be good, and now it's not going to deal a higher DPS count, but it's going to have a higher burst damage. So think about something like Izanagi's Burden. Izanagi does not do crazy DPS, but when you shoot that bitch With Izanagi, you see a huge chunk of damage leave out. Now that's a sniper rifle, this is a machine gun, but you're gonna see bigger chunks of damage come out with the slower rate of fire. That's all that means. Fighting Lion has always been fun, but not dominant in PvE. So we weren't worried about the impact infinite ammo would have there. I forgot this was a primary ammo weapon. So yeah, however, enabling fast, unlimited grenade spamming was too much in PvP based on internal playtests. So we've addressed that specific case without significantly impacting its feel in PvE. So Fighting Lion reserve ammo has been increased from a lot to infinite. It'll receive the same changes as other breach grenade launchers, which we read up top. They reduced the base reload stat to 0. Breach grenade launchers with 0 reload stat reload very, very slowly, so it's gonna reload like shit. They now increase the reload speed to its previous level on damaging multiple enemies with 1 grenade. I think that has something to do with the perk. We'll be keeping an eye on this, but believe it's in a good place with this change. And note that we're not going to over nerf an exotic with its own subreddit. You shouldn't be manually reloading Fighting Lion anyway, which is what I was saying. That's the whole point of the perk. So if anybody's upset, which of course there's gonna be people who are upset, but if anybody's upset at this Fighting Lion change, I mean, just read the last sentence. You shouldn't be manually reloading Fighting Lion anyway. If you're using it the way it's intended to, you're still gonna get the unlimited reload, and you have unlimited ammo. So yeah. Oh please, I don't know if you guys saw, I posted the video. Everybody was talking about, yo, Jotunn's gonna be mad dope next season, unstoppable fusion rifles, you know, everybody's talking about Jotunn. So I went inside the game and I fought against some unstoppables, did a little damage preview, made a clip, posted it to Twitter and YouTube, and I showed that Merciless and Jotunn killing an unstoppable. Jotunn took forever. Merciless killed the unstoppable in 2 charges. And then when you use the perk for Merciless where you kill an ad, reload, and get bonus damage, it almost killed it in 1. So I'm afraid to read this part because I really hope they don't nerf Merciless, because I was going to use Merciless next season, not Jotunn. So they said Merciless. We had to touch this anyway because of the fusion rifle changes, and figured if we're in there, we might as well make a buff we'd been thinking about. Oh, I'm using Merciless, bro. Updated the perk to account for fewer shots per burst. Should build up charge rate the same amount per burst as before. Reduced the damage penalty for increasing charge rate by 40%. Oh, because this is gonna shoot faster now. Okay. Okay, yeah, because it would have been a higher rate of fire, which would have lowered the damage, but they're saying they reduced the damage penalty because it got an increase in rate of fire. So damn. All I'm saying is I'm team Merciless. I don't know how many of y'all gonna be team Merciless with me, but fuck Jotunn. It's Merciless gang. That's it. No Jotunns over here. All right, so Jotunn's getting a change. Because of how the charge time stat works with the fusion rifle changes, we made a small change to avoid breaking this weapon. In playtesting, it makes almost no difference, but if I didn't mention it, someone would notice. Reduce charge time from 0.82 to 0.78, so it charges 0.04 seconds faster, so it's not that noticeable, but they also slightly reduced the damage per shot. Bastion feels very strong with shotguns being less dominant, so we're preemptively adjusting it in PvP, but it also has super low usage in PvE, so we're buffing it there too. Reduce the damage by 15%, so it can now not quite kill a guardian with 1 shot in the 3 bursts it fires. Okay, cool. Increase the spread angle by 10%, and they increase the PvE damage by 25%. So overall, around a 10% increase in PvE. Sweet Business. So Sweet Business perk, refilling the magazine when picking up primary, no longer works in a world without primary ammo. So it's been adjusted. It now refills the magazine on picking up special heavy ammo instead of primary. We got some perks here. Firing Line. We like the idea of the perk. It was just giving away a bit too much damage for almost free. They reduced the damage bonus to plus 20% precision damage for all supported weapon archetypes. Was highly variable depending on weapon type. It will roll on some sniper, linear fusion, machine guns, and maybe some other stuff in the future. Oh, okay, so yeah, that's why they're doing it. So it's gonna start dropping again. I like this perk. We'll see how good it is after, you know, the 20% precision damage nerf. Certain damage perks only affected impact damage on explosive weapons. We've updated these specific perks to also increase detonation damage. So Kill Clip, Rampage, and Adrenaline Junkie. Cool. So Adrenaline Junkie, rocket launchers, pay attention, stop sleeping. Okay, we've also fixed incorrect rarity on some recently shipped weapon perks. Don't know what those are, but cool. All primary weapons now have infinite ammo. Wow, that's a huge change. Inertia Override has been adjusted to account for there being no primary bricks. Yeah, they did talk about that in the abilities swap. Drop mag's downside of reducing reserved ammo is now meaningless. So they reworked it to be a plus for the reload speed and a minus for the magazine size. Compact arrow shafts upside of increasing reserve ammo likewise. So they reworked it to be a plus for reload and a plus for handling. Updated some other perks that refer to reserves in a way that's no longer accurate, because yeah, they're also adding the new mod that basically reloads your weapons passively, the holster mod. Target farming trials weapons is much more efficient in season 15, and we have some cool new perks for players to play with that we wanted to put on trials weapons. So there's going to be a better way of farming trials weapons. That's pretty cool. All trials weapons available in season 15 now have 7 perks in each column. It was 5. So when max power levels on weapons launched and we reissued several weapons, we saw how frustrated players were at having to regrind their favorite roles, since the perk pools hadn't changed. Based on that, our reissue guidelines from season 13 onwards were to replace most of the perks. Turns out that that was an overcorrection, and that certain weapons in the original pools had become part of the identity of the weapons. Moving forward, the guidelines for reissues will be to remove the least useful 2 to 3 perks and add 2 to 3 newer perks to give the weapon some new options, and may result in an entirely new top tier role without removing the old one. We've made some small adjustments to the weapons reissued in 3.2.1 update to move these in the direction of the new reissue guidelines. And if you were wondering why our community managers were asking for everyone's favorite roles, now you know. They added 1 or 2 of the original perks to each column for the lunar weapons, so the moon weapons. And since these can be target farmed, we're okay with increasing the size of the perk pools in this case. Added 1 of the original perks to 1 or both columns for the Dreaming City weapons, so same thing. Since these can't be target farmed yet, we didn't want to increase the size of the pools by more than 1. Okay, yeah, so the moon weapons get more perks than the Dreaming City weapons, but that's just because of how you're able to farm them as of right now. So the yet part of the Dreaming City stuff, I'm curious. We're not able to farm the weapons yet. Does that mean, is that like a low-key confirmation? Season 15, Dreaming City is gonna be a new activity, farming Dreaming City, just saying. Anyway, so archetypes. Note, exotics receive these changes as written unless otherwise mentioned in the exotic section below. So everything I'm about to read applies to exotics unless it's stated below that it's not the case. So breach grenade launchers are increasing as a pain point in PvP, and with the shotgun nerf we're seeing a small increase in usage, which was expected because they did mention that when the shotguns got nerfed. This change aims to reduce the ease of getting big splash damage for priming or cleaning up targets. We'll watch how things change and make further adjustments in a future update if needed. Note that we're fine with how they perform in PvE, so have compensated there. They reduced the blast radius by 0.4 meters. Example, max blast radius decreased from 4.55 to 4.15. The minimum blast radius is decreased from 3.80 to 3.4. So they reduced the blast damage, reduced splash damage by 20, which reduces the total damage for a direct hit from 220 to 200, and this is before taking spike or proximity grenades into account. So they increased damage in PvE by 12%. Because of the above splash damage change, this results in a small overall buff to combined damage. So that's good. Wither Horde is unaffected. We might see something for Wither Horde though in the exotic section, we'll see. So yeah, I mean, reduce the blast damage should help with the whole priming effect, because that's really the biggest issue. You go play PvP, somebody just shoot you around a corner, just don't even have to hit you, just explodes it near you, and you're pretty much just primed and ready to just get one shot. So while machine gun usage is surprisingly high, we felt that they weren't fulfilling their intended role in high difficulty content. Ammo efficient ad clear and secondary single target sustained damage. Increased damage in PvE by 20%. Okay, so they got a 20% buff. I'm okay with that. I mentioned that yesterday on Twitter because I was talking about, you know, getting a PvE buff for machine guns. We knew it was coming, just didn't know what it was. And machine guns are good at clearing ads, but they're not as good at damaging bosses. And what I said yesterday was they don't need to be top tier. Like, I'm not asking for machine guns to take over as the #1 spot. That'd be ridiculous. But what I am asking for is for the gap between machine guns and like rocket launchers and everything else to be closed. Because right now it's like you can go use them to clear ads, but with supers and all these other weapons that you use to clear ads, you know, the grenade launch we just got from this season, why would I bring a machine gun just to clear ads? It needs to be able to clear ads and be competitive with boss damage. So hopefully the 20% damage buff is enough. We'll see. So they said scout rifles and hand cannons have felt weaker than we'd like in hard PvE content for a while, so they increased the damage versus miners by 15%. I think this is going to be a good start, and we'll see how they handle, you know, everything else, because obviously you're not going to use a hand cannon or a scout rifle and say I should be able to kill a champion with that. That's what you have all your specials and your heavies for. So the 15% buff should be, you know, pretty good to not make them feel weak against the weakest enemies that you're fighting against, which they currently do. This is going to be the fusion rifle section. So they said fusion rifles have benefited indirectly from the mid-season 14 shotgun nerf, but fusion rifles subfamilies weren't as different from each other as we wanted and weren't all useful in a variety of content. So we looked at all the options we had for diversifying them and ended up with some substantial changes. This isn't intended to be a global buff to fusion rifles, but we expect some of these to be better counters to other weapons than they were previously. So they increased PvE damage bonus such that all subfamilies have a 15% PvE bonus. Previously, high impact was 0%, precision and adaptive were 10%, and rapid fire was 12.5%. They pushed subfamilies further apart, adjusting charge time, shots fired per burst. It was 7 for all subfamilies, and damage. Note that the base below means without battery perks, a charge time masterwork, or the adept charge time mod. So this is what we're about to read, does not take any of these into account. So all the battery perks that you can get to increase your impact, charge time, masterworking, adept charge time mods, none of that is taken into consideration with these changes. So high impacts charge slower, and while still strong, require more planning to use effectively. So the base charge time is now increased from 0.86 to 1 second. So that's a considerable amount for a fusion rifle. Shots per burst reduced from 7 to 5. Reduced total damage per burst. In playtesting, we found that charging these in the open is super risky, but pre-charging around corners or otherwise in safety is very effective. Which is really, like, you know, since D1 we've learned how to use these weapons. Pre-charging is really how you want to use fusion rifles anyway. So they're really playing into the play style of fusion rifles here, but they're just going all in. This is like high risk, high reward, you know, to a T. So with the reduced shots per burst, these are now less reliant on stability, so you can stack a bit more range. Precisions and adaptives are close to unchanged, so basically the same. Base charge time is unchanged, shot per burst unchanged, very slightly increased total damage per burst, so slight damage buff. In playtesting, we feel these are very effective all around without stepping on the niches of high impacts and rapid fires. Rapid fires now charge faster, allowing them to be used reactively against charging enemies or aggressively when pushing forward. So base charge time decreased from 0.54 to 0.46. Shots per burst increased from 7 to 9, so you get more shots. Increased total damage per burst. In playtesting, we found that these are very effective against shotgun rushers. The combination of them needing to be closer because they have no good range, and you having a shorter charge time works well together. And if you have good enough timing, you can fire 2 bursts with a rapid fire before a high impact user finishes charging theirs first. That makes sense. With the increased shots per burst, these are now more reliant on stability. But with the increased damage, they're less reliant on range. Like initially reading on this one, it sounds like people are gonna be running around mapping people, but if you really think about the rapid fires really have like no range. So these are basically shotguns, pretty much. Part of this work required adjusting several fusion rifle perks and one mod. Backup Plan's implementation was incompatible with the fusion rifle changes, and we felt like the perk could use a rework anyway. So they removed the plus 100 to charge time stat. They adjusted the charge time multiplier from 0.85 to 0.7, and it now scales damage by 0.8. Liquid coils and accelerated coils needed a rework for similar reasons. Both converted to scale charge time and damage instead of modifying the charge time stat. Okay, so they'll scale damage and charge time rather than just changing the charge time stat specifically. So the final effect is much the same as before, but these are now more robust. However, they won't visibly change the charge time stat in the inspection screen. So the adept charge time mod felt pointless, and we felt like it would still be balanced against other mods if it didn't reduce damage. So they changed the functionality to scale charge time directly instead of changing the charge time stat without adjusting the damage. A note on the charge time masterwork: a fusion rifle's damage is determined by its charge time stat, similar to how most other weapons damage is determined by their rate of fire stat. Masterworks can only increase weapon stats for performance reasons, so it's not possible to change how charge time maps onto damage without big changes onto how the charge time stat works. So they investigated doing this by making the masterwork a perk, but this would cause fusion rifles to exceed the perk budget, resulting in bad things happening as mentioned in the prior 12. With the fusion rifle rework, we feel that this masterwork is more viable. It now rarely reduces bolts to kill, so it may not feel like a downgrade in the same way as before. We'll be watching to see how this plays out and have some options to address the issue if that's still needed. They adjusted the fusion rifle stat order so it matches other weapons, so stability and handling were out of order. This is a big change to fusion rifles, including all exotic fusions, so we'll be watching for any major issues and we'll make tweaks as needed. So yeah, that's all the fusion rifle stuff. So basically they spread the subfamilies a little bit, so they gave them a little bit more breathing room, changed up some perks, some mods, adjusted some values. So I mean, we'll see how it works. We'll see how everything goes.